For all. Thank you very much. Before you go into the anthem, but I know you're going to. Okay, I want to say welcome to everybody tonight. Thank you so much for coming. We have a smaller group tonight, but we do have a group, and you do know that we are on virtual. That people are watching from home, probably where they're a lot cooler in their conditions. Thank you again, like I say, for coming, for taking the chance to come out here during the pandemic. I'm Evangeline Belonsky, and I'm the Vice President, Secretary for this coming year. As you know, last month, our President, Peter Cat, passed away suddenly. And so Carl Benninger, who is has been our Vice President, now has stepped up as President, and I was brought up to Vice and Secretary. Okay. The rest of our board members here, this is George Collins here by my left. Okay. And Terry McCall, there is Spencer, and Leon Jacobs is not here. Everyone is here to go down the phone. All right, again, tonight we have a few committee reports. The police department walked into private committee. But the commander,
Hernandez.
Commander Hernandez, who will come up here and introduce themselves. Okay, the two of them, and share with something.
Really now. Good evening, folks. My name is Richard Barger. We're not in yet. Thank you for allowing us to pop in real quick. I just wanted to come introduce one of our newest, our newest commander. He's a watch commander working Thursday, Friday, and every other Saturday night. So he'll be here a majority of the Thursday meeting. We often invite special folks from the traffic division. If you have traffic questions, other folks have Steve guest tonight is going to speak up a whole lot more stuff than I know. But my purpose of being here tonight is just to introduce our new commander, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. Thank you for allowing us to come in.
Hi, as I mentioned, my name is Johnathan, commander here with the police department, the newest commander. I'm sure I'm going to remind you of that. I'll be around the building. I am the assigned watch commander for this time of week. So when you have meetings, I will be present. I'll be present here at the station if there's anything that's necessary. You have any questions, I will be happy to up in and address any issues that I can be helpful with. I gave my card to Benjamin and George, so they have my contact information. The only thing I would ask is if possible, if there is something that you would like me to answer or get some further information, just give me a little bit of a heads up, and I'll be happy to do the research and provide you some Gil Hernandez, those of you that I haven't had the pleasure to meet, and I'll look forward to it.
Thank you.
So 714 for the folks that have 742458700 for the watch manual.
Yes.
I'll be answering the phone. So, my raspy voice, by the time you call, it will be some bad.
Can you repeat it one more time?
No, yes, 714.
Wait a minute. 714. Okay.
742458700.
Again. 245. 714.
245
245
8700.
8700. Thank you.
870.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I don't know what the phone was.
Okay, now, Margarita, you know, should be minutes, is that correct?
Correct.
Under one of our committee reports. You can speak on the board.
Yes. I can go first to share some announcements.
Okay. All right, Margarita's going to come up here and take Nolan Cam's place. He's going to be here to speak on another community report on general planning and update. Okay, so Margarita's going to take her place, and maybe these who will come in.
I'm happy to take her place.
Right, it's Massachusetts. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Colony. I'm Margarita. Great to see some of you. Joe, it's great to see you. I saw you earlier today at Logan Park, so at Triples Park for your event, on Saturday. But we have some important information coming up. There's a lot happening in the city. Hi, how are you? Captain Harmon, sorry, distracted. So we wanted to share some critical dates we have. A lot of you have heard about the general plan update. It was continued earlier this year to extend our community outreach. And so we are lining up for some key opportunities for the community to continue to participate and share input. So the first opportunity coming up is on September the 27th. We have the Planning Commission workshop scheduled. So we're gonna provide a workshop on the housing element, what is incorporated into the draft, what kind of input are people wanting to see in this next round, this next version of the housing element update. We also have a Planning Commission study session following that on October 11th. Then we are going to have 3 community open house meetings to review the draft of the housing element. So the first one will kick off on Monday, October 18th. That one is an in-person only meeting at New Hope Library. They've done some improvements there, so we're excited to work with them to host the meeting. On Tuesday, October 26th, we'll have a virtual meeting only, so that'll be through Zoom. And on Saturday, November 6th, we'll be at El Salvador Community Center. So following that, we have a couple of other opportunities where the public hearing will be scheduled for the Planning Commission in December. And then we expect to have the public hearing at the City Council level on February 2022. So we're trying to give you as much advance notice to continue to participate in these meetings. Very, very important. So thank you very much. If you'd like, we can go through CERT and then I'll pull up the redistricting information. CERT, your other committee update. We have our here. Yes. Yes, correct. I'm just saying to continue that, and then I'll come back to the redistricting because I have to put some information. I'll be back for the redistricting. Okay. I know I have a big note, but I don't need 2 microphones. You don't need 2 microphones. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Margaret, very much. Okay, that in the background now, let's take our Orange County Fire Department and attend PD here. We have Captain Porter from the fire department here in Santa Ana, and we have Stephen Rhyner. Okay, which type? Emergency operations. And I have that written right down, emergency operations coordinator. Okay, I didn't really. They're going to take us through CERT, I should say, what some of us, I know I am one of them, who was in the very first class of CERT, the very first CERT class, I should say. Do we have anybody here who was 2 at the time? 1 of us, 2 of us, okay, 3 of us. And it was a wonderful class. I think it was a week, once or 1 few months, and we did a hands-on program. We got to put out fires. We learned how to get out of the smoky building, right? We learned by the walls, so I got to see everything. They put masks on us. We learned how to save people from a burning fire, or save people where rubble had fallen on top of them. We learned how to get them out from underneath. And it was a wonderful program. It was very, very interesting. We didn't get longer at the very end of the CPR program for a while. So we had a great program. This is a Davis team. Thomas, yes. And he took us all through. It's a wonderful program. So we don't know whether it's kind of died down a little bit, or we heard that other cities do have their programs, and we want to be with them, you know, on the same level, or we have the same level, so they're all together with everything. So that's why we had asked Captain Hernandez here to see them, if they would update us on everything and tell us about things we're going to do, okay? And how we compare to other cities in the county, because we would be the one. Okay?
Well, thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Captain Stephen Horner, Orange County Fire Authority. I've been working in the city now for 37 years. And one of the things that was brought to our attention was the CERT program and how important the CERT program is to a community, especially with the city of Santa Ana. And so Steve Rhyner is here tonight to talk about the CERT program, to be able to bring out a lot of what he's done. As you probably know, the transition of the Santa Ana Fire Department to the Orange County Fire Authority happened in 2012. And by default, the CERT program was handed off to the Santa Ana Police Department because the agency was heavily involved at the time, or partially involved. And now they pick up the ball and they take over. Steve then gets hired in a position to do many things. He wears a lot of different hats. And tonight, he's here to talk about his role in running the CERT program. But before he does that, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the Orange County Fire Authority does not run the CERT program. We're actually a contract fire department with the city here, and we then provide equipment and training and resources to assist with the CERT program. But we have some more to talk about as well, so I'll turn that over to Steve.
Thank you. So CERT, CERT is Community Emergency Response Team Training. I think most of the programs, most of the people in the room have taken it. It's a 20-hour course, and as they started to mention it, it teaches residents and homeowners how to prepare themselves to major emergencies, like in our test example, how to prepare your family, emergency supplies, what to do if you have to evacuate. And then it teaches you a lot of disaster response skills, because in a major event like an earthquake, the professional first responders, police, fire, paramedics, are going to be overwhelmed. They're not going to be able to help everybody at once. So the program teaches how to put out smaller fires, how to use a fire extinguisher, how to shut off your gas, electricity, a little bit of first aid, medical care, a little bit of light rescue for lightning trapped people, nothing too technical, and some other disaster preparedness skills, so that again, if the professional responders can't help everybody at once, neighbors and family members can help each other. Again, it's a 20-hour course. We do it 4 times a year, twice in English, twice in Spanish. We're keeping up with that for several years until COVID. Last year, we were able to do 1 of each. We were hoping to get 1 in by the end of this year, but we're not quite comfortable with that large group in person instruction yet. So we're hoping to get back on track with that schedule next spring and summer. Now, what we do here is the training. Other cities do have a little bit more full-time CERT program. And what that means is after the training, people will graduate from the course to be formed into city response teams, volunteer teams that could be activated and put to work either during an emergency or sometimes for non-emergency activities that can help out the city. That's not something that we've been able to do that really increases the workload quite a bit. And either Steve or I, CERT is not the primary focus of our job. It's something that we have to try to fill in around the edges. But when we do have volunteer teams, it requires registered volunteers, background checks, liability insurance, participation requirements, codes of conduct, some of that formal volunteer requirements. And then if we were to recruit and motivate volunteers, we need to keep them engaged. Things like monthly meetings or quarterly drills or newsletters. We don't want to start a program and not be able to keep people engaged and just disappoint. So at this point, yeah, we are a little bit behind some of the other cities that have a full-time CERT program. We're hoping to be able to expand that. The idea of getting additional staff in to be that CERT coordinator, be that volunteer coordinator, whether it be city dollars or grant money or some kind of cost sharing arrangement, so that we could have more long-term volunteer engagement in addition to just. Anything else? Yeah.
Just a couple of things that we've done a little bit of background work for tonight. Just to bring you up to speed with a couple of the other cities that really are heavily involved and has a lot to do with, as Steve mentioned, the amount of resources, but a couple of statements I want to share. CERT is truly designed to be about an individual's personal preparedness, first and foremost, and then being a volunteer second. And the design of the federal government to do this was to be able to help the communities when you do have those major events. Only 10 fire engines and, 3 truck companies, and everybody's going every direction when that big one hits. So as much resources we have available, we would love to train everybody, get everybody up to speed. But again, it's set back a little bit with the COVID, and then now new curriculum has come out. And that new curriculum, Steve and I met to be able to bring that new curriculum to the new classes coming up. And in addition to that, with some innovation and ideas, we have a beautiful training center down in Centennial Park. And usually some of the ideas that come our way, it'd be great to have more input as to what you want to see from your CERT program. It really is labor intensive. It's driven right now by one individual and then assisted by the OCFA. But at the same time, it can build a bigger and better program, all based on the amount of funding, resources, and personnel that can get involved. And then not every Orange County city participates with the volunteers, but they participate to coordinate training, grant funds, and citizen preparedness exercises and activities. And those can be done on a quarterly basis. Again, what's the direction of the CERT and what would you like to see? Because I know Steve does a great job in putting things together. It's just a matter of when can we put the CERT classes on, and how many resources do we have available? How many people are signing up? And as you know, it's been very challenging during the COVID crisis for the last couple of years. So,
in our last board meeting, Carl Banks made a goal for Comlink to bring back the survey. So that's what Comlink can do to assist Rhyner on doing this. That's probably apparently we're going to take an active role in trying to get an active train and retain certain points.
yeah, that's a great idea, George. I feel that being able to have coordination and communication with Comlink and the CERT program. Again, we throw it out there is, what do you want in your CERT program? Because we had a burn box down there at Centennial Park. We were able to put victims inside of there and perform rescue when Evangeline and George and others went through. But we don't have that prop down there anymore. But if we want to build to that better program, sure. We would just want to know what direction you want to go, and what kind of funding, and all of that would be channeled through the SAPD, and of course, Steve Rhyner.
People learn their hands-on. And they use the
That's right. And that's why we do the exercises, because as soon as you finish in the classroom, we're going outside, and the hands-on portion with PPE and the proper training. There's a lot of things that you can do through the CERT program to assist in your home or your neighbor's home during a crisis. And that's the whole intention of that program, is to help yourself and help each other in the community.
Just to add to that, we have to remember that, everybody, who's got our police department, we have our fire department, they'll take care of us, like a new around the block, they'll be here enough time. If we had an earthquake, big ones, they talk about it, earthquake, and the homes are damaged, and roads are up, they're not gonna come to help, you're not gonna get there. You're probably gonna be involved in the shop somewhere, and so that's why we have to know how to help. Hopefully, the neighbor is doing this is something they need help, or maybe the child is trying for help somewhere. So that's why it's really good to know that you can, if they can help or I mean, the next door across the street or down the block, because don't count on fire to do things.
That's right. We teach in the classes, even if you have zero training, we can teach you some of those life safety measures that will make a difference. So please join, sign up, become part of our CERT program.
Along those lines, there are 29 cities around town that have some form of CERT. What do we need to do as online to assist you so we can outline what type of CERT package we want and what steps we need to go through? Since we're going along those lines, I think we're doing training, at least now how do we change that and train and retain so we can start forming our semi-annual quarterly all the procedures. You and I work together after the radio. Able to bring radio in some cities are doing traffic control that has helped us on the parades, on the Mexican parade and the marathon that goes to town. We have used for volunteers who produce training. What steps we have to go through to get to that level?
I want to refer that to Steve. I think because he's a little bit more involved in that. But like anything that we do, we usually coordinate, communicate with, meeting, input, asking for ideas. That will generally help out quite a bit with being able to create a better program.
Yeah, again, we do sometimes get compared negatively to some of the neighboring cities. Bring up the station, Irvine does this, Rhyner does that. And I don't like that, but in fairness, their staff do a lot more. We can't compare our results to them. We're not staff the same.
So what we need to do is help you with staffing initially is what they're saying.
That's what I'm asking for. That's what I'm working on internally.
Well, no, I mean, we're having this, we had a board meeting discussing this. Okay, if we look at other cities, what they're doing, what model do we want to follow? And then come to you and say, this is the model we want, what do we have to achieve that? And I think we would all eventually like to have a train and retrain, train and retain, thank you very much, CERT, where our department can follow up, or instance with me, you know, I can put my phone up and give you a 4 or 5 square mile area of, yeah, there's 4 or 5 over here, there's something over here, before we have an individual go out and feed that to Facebook or directly to CFA. So that's available to us. How do we go about getting that implemented? And that's what we're trying to find out. What is the steps we need more personnel? So commonly we can go to city council and say, okay, it looks like we want to do that. Let's get more personnel. They look to the police department, get more personnel. What steps do we need to do as common to assist you?
Well, I think you're absolutely on track with that, George, because in the past, those are some of the things that we've done is try to promote getting additional staff, additional budget, and additional equipment. In those past, and even sometimes today, when we say, do we have enough people signed up, do we have enough interest? Who's going to teach the class? How many do we need to teach the class? How many notebooks do we have? How many backpacks? How many helmets? These are all part of that funding. And then the location, where are we going to conduct the class? Because we can do it at Centennial Park, or we can do it pretty much anywhere in the city, in a business or a location. And then lastly is the support by getting additional props and all those kinds of things. So I think the idea of having Comlink assist would be, let's put a wish list together. And that wish list all can be vetted through the committee or develop a committee and put it together and then submit that. I think that's a great idea because Steve, very busy guy within the city, redoing the emergency operations plan. We all got together, we all had our input and helped develop that, you know, or revise it. Those kinds of procedures help because you get input from a lot of people. So that's my suggestion, Steve. I don't know how you feel about that. We've done that in the past.
Are you willing to use the police volunteers that we got here today? Kind of on call it not the house, we kind of on the side right now because of the pandemic. I don't expect to work. So, can you think about using them by any chance, or volunteers?
Yeah.
Raise volunteers.
It would actually kind of be the same program, as I mentioned, the CERT volunteers have to become registered volunteers with the city, and the background check involved, liability protection and so on. So they would be incorporated into the VIPS.
I don't know, I was asked how recently, if I would be willing to help my fire department this year.
As you mentioned, during COVID, there weren't a lot of volunteer activities. And yeah, if we had more of a volunteer coordinator position that can incorporate all those things, more activities.
Because when I call my husband on the neighborhood, the whole neighborhood puts going on. Sorry, need a microphone? Okay, go ahead. It's for the people on the Zoom. I know. Okay. Any more you want to say, or questions, or?
So,
What are you going?
with the CERT, I also have an OCFA update that I'd like to share with Comlink and everybody out there in Zoom. If we're done talking about CERT, I'd like to continue on.
Continue, yeah.
Okay, great.
Our main speakers are here.
So with the Orange County Fire Authority contracting with the city of Santa Ana since the beginning of September, we've run a total of 1,876 incidents in a 23-day period. That breaks down to 82 fires, 1,638 rescue and medical aid type calls. And with our 10 fire stations in the city, it's a very, very busy place. It is the busiest battalion in the Orange County Fire Authority. And we're proud of being in Division 6 and serving the city of Santa Ana and be able to provide those types of services. Now I want to transition to the wildland and what's currently going on in the state of California. As a lot of you are seeing, we even saw some smoke drifting our way today because of the fires. But as of just an example, as of August 27th, we have 15,000 plus personnel battling 14 active large wildland fires that have burned 1,683,000 plus acres. We have over 1,000 engines, 328 hand crews, 394 bulldozers, 390 water tenders, and 114 helicopters, all trying to battle these fires. I spent 18 days at the Caldor fire, and my experience there was invaluable, and the things that I saw was over 216,000 acres. 11,557 residents were evacuated in the area. Over 24,000 structures were threatened, and almost 2,000 structures were damaged or destroyed. In one day, that fire moved 8.5 miles. Very unusual fire behavior because of the terrain-driven winds, the low humidity, the low moisture. We need rain, and without that, that fire burned basically from Omo Ranch, Grizzly Flats, all the way to Lake Tahoe. So with that being over $200 million in cost for just the one fire, and the amount of money it takes and the resources to fight these fires. September is National Preparedness Month. We always encourage everybody to be wildfire ready. We use the Ready, Set, Go, request a free home assessment for wildfire threats, pack a disaster kit, prepare an escape plan, and then evacuate early. Some of the fire behavior I saw, I can clearly understand along Highway 50 near Kivers and Strawberry area, that if you did not evacuate out of there, we were watching homes blow up within seconds. It was really very unusual fire behavior. So during our September month, we focus on preparing for disasters, developing a plan. How many of you at home have a plan for a fire escape? And then assembling a disaster supply kit. We teach that in CERT, but we also teach it from the fire side. Please have a disaster kit ready to go. Prepare your home and familiarize yourself with resources. So what's the threat in the city of Santa Ana? It's a moderate wildland fire threat zone. Fires will burn briskly and spread rapidly on windy days. We've had those fires, those large palm trees that are out there. It goes from tree to tree rapidly. Brush and timber fires spread slowly to moderately fast. Piles of brush or debris may burn hot in the Santiago Creek area. Possesses possible threats, and necessary resources throughout the county would provide mutual assistance to come in for those types of fires. And lastly, is some of the events in the city that we've done so far this month. Is we had Friday Night Munchies with a community event on South Bristol. We did the fire prevention drill at Modern Day High School, and that was really neat to be part of because they're well organized. They communicate well. They coordinated with all of the evacuation, and we were there to provide assistance and any information that could help speed up that process and make it a little better. We did a career fair at Hernandez High School and a safety presentation at Elks Lodge. So we are heavily involved with the community in a lot that we do. Please, if you have any questions, please feel free to look us up on the website or call us at Division 6 office, 714-573-3236 or 567-3236.
All right, I already said.
Yeah, 567-3236. Yep. Thank you very much.
Any questions, anybody? Anybody there talking about their home meeting? No? Okay, well, thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we're getting some comments on the Zoom that they are not able to hear the presentation. So if we have common board members who are speaking, if you can speak in the microphone, because that way the people on Zoom are part of the meeting and we can share that. So before I share on the redistricting meetings and the process, I have some flyers here. Excuse me. Yeah, okay, so who cares about internet access? All of us, right? Because we need it. We need it to work. We need it to function. So the city has launched an internet access survey. So we really are encouraging you to, you can scan the QR code that is in this flyer, go to the city's website. There's different surveys and you can see the IT survey. So the IT director, Jack Shula, was mentioning that it's really important to take the survey from your home because it'll help measure the speed of your internet as you're responding to the survey. And that information is very helpful for the city to get a baseline of how fast, how well, how accessible is the internet activity from your home. So we really encourage you to do that. We're gonna provide this material. Thank you, Evangeline, for passing it out. We're going to provide this material at other neighborhood meetings and at other neighborhood events. So moving on to the redistricting process, if we can go above Ramon, like at the top of the page. So redistricting, how many of you are familiar with redistricting? Every 10 years? Yes, so very important process, a community-driven process, because this is a requirement to be able to comment, to share your input on how the boundaries should be redrawn, reshaped, so that the population in your district is representative of you. So working with the clerk of the council's office to showcase and have opportunities for community members to participate. We have, if you can, Ramon, if you can scroll a little bit above, I'm sorry, below, there we go. So the important thing this time around is we're having material in multiple languages, probably more than before. So we can see that there's a community interest forum. We're interested in getting input about, how you envision your neighborhood. What are the boundaries that
you feel are reflective of your district board, and just some other description that our clerk of the council of the city is wanting to gather. We also have some key opportunities. We have in-person meetings that we welcome input and participation from this community-driven process. You can scroll down, yeah. So we have our first meeting kicking off in Council Ward 6 this Saturday, September the 25th. And it's at the Delhi Center. So if you live in that area, anybody is welcome to all of the meetings, but if you know of people and neighbors that are near the Delhi Center area, in the Ward 6 area, it's very important that they participate, that they attend, and really get involved and engaged as this process continues. These are the other listed dates that we have. A lot of them are in October. The last one will be concluding in Ward 4 on October 30th. So a lot of them are like on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We just wanted to, folks who attend Comlink are heavily invested in their neighborhood. So we expect and we encourage you to be involved in this process as well. We have our staff and the clerk of the council on the Zoom if there are any questions. George, I don't know, where's George? Or Ramon, if we have any questions. But we just thought it was really important to share this timely information, only because redistricting matters, right? You giving your input on how the boundaries of your council ward should be represented is what matters, and this is the opportunity to do this. It's every 10 years, so this is it. So we'll check if there are any questions from folks here or not on the Zoom. Okay, so that concludes my update on behalf of the clerk of the council. She was not feeling well, so she couldn't make it, and we needed her to get strong for Saturday's meeting and the remainder of the October meetings. So there you are, Evangeline. Okay, back to Evangeline. Thank you, everyone.
Excuse me, please. Can you hear me in this? I think so. That ends our evening, but don't go just yet, because next month is October, and our meeting will be in here, will be the 28th of October, and we will have Santa Ana Police Department's Chief Valentin to come here to introduce us to the new Deputy Chief Robert Rodriguez, and he took Deputy Chief Ken Dumitski's place. He retired. And so this is our new DC that we're going to have. So they will be visiting us next month. Also, we were trying to have code enforcement to come here. They have a program on code enforcement again to see how they're operating these days and how they are doing. Also, we hope to have the Councilmember Jesse Lopez. I guess if she can come that day, and I do believe some of us walked in the back. Okay, thank you. Well, that's next month. I believe our speaker for the evening just walked in the door. Councilman Johnathan Hernandez, is that correct?
That is correct. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Now, I'm really good now that you showed up. You want to hear with me?
Yes.
I need a person.
Yes.
I never met your name. I could add anything with it.
We can do that. We can do more. All right. Thank you. Hi, everybody. How are we doing today? Good to see you, Mr. Johnathan. Hi, everyone. My name is Johnathan Hernandez. Your neighbor. I live here off of Civic Center and Ray. Born and raised in this community my whole life. And my family's been in the East Epilad neighborhood since the mid-1950s. I am now a proud homeowner in that very community. I'm raising my daughter in the community my family decided to settle in. And I have the honor of representing Ward 5 as a council member. Ward 5 consists of the boundaries of between 17, the Willets, and roughly Harbor, a little closer to Grand, pretty much the end of the Logan neighborhood. So without further ado, I am really honored and humbled to be here, and would love to answer any and all questions that you may have. All right. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, much better. Okay, so I am humbled and honored to be here. I would love to answer any and all questions you may have. So without further ado,
Yeah, okay, let me help you with that one. Am I on?
yes.
Okay. I'm always on, yeah. Okay, what we want to hear from you tonight are, what were your goals as you were running for city council person? Have you been able to accomplish any of them in the short time you've been on the council with us? And what goals do you have for the future, and how are you going to go about doing them? Because that's the main thing we want you to talk about.
Thank you.
Your goals past, your goals present, and goals future.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Well, first and foremost, the most important goal to me was to make sure that the residents from the Santa Anita community all the way down to the Logan community had a representative that was understanding of the intricacies of each neighborhood, the different issues, unique issues that each neighborhood faces, and that they have representation across the board. I was successful in my campaign. I ran a very grassroots campaign, independent of political parties. I ran right in the middle, making sure that I could be a voice for people, regardless of what side they stood on, because I believe that representation should be unconditional. And I believe that representation should see no political boundaries. And I was successful as evidenced. And for me, what was most important in being victorious was making sure that residents had a voice at City Hall. So from the Logan community, they had, so many years without speed bumps. How many years, Mr. Andrew? Close to 50 years, and I think in my first 2 months, we were able to get those speed bumps installed. Washington, yes. And in addition to that, there's been ongoing concerns. I'll use Logan as an example since Mr. Andrade is here. There's been ongoing concerns with certain businesses that exist within what should be a residential neighborhood. I'm fighting day in and day out to make sure that this neighborhood goes back to the quality of life that's most important to it, so that residents aren't having to constantly combat being home while competing with businesses that are trying to profit. That should be a neighborhood where people can thrive. So that's one thing that I've been fighting for in the Logan community. In the Artesia Pilar community, I was able to appoint somebody that has been a voice for my neighbors for decades, and that is Ruby Wu to the Planning Commission. She's done a fantastic, to the Parks and Recreation Commission, forgive me. She's done a fantastic job advocating for seniors, for families, and for children together. She has done some fantastic things with her city. She recently hosted a symphony, Pacific Symphony on the Go event at Santa Ana College. We partnered with the Orange County Therapeutic Arts Center, where children and one of the best Pacific symphonies in the world performed for free at Santa Ana College. So as a result, in the Artesia Pilar neighborhood, we're activating community spaces that were very underutilized. Because I believe as a council member that we can't just solely leave this on our police department to keep our community safe. We need elected officials, we need community leaders, and we need our parks and recreation departments to be proactive in preventing crime. And the way that we prevent crime is we have to keep families busy, we have to keep children occupied, and we got to keep them learning and keep them engaged. So Ruby Wu has been able to do that in the Artesia Pilar neighborhood. We introduced a Summer Night Lights program at one of the most adversely affected parks in the city, El Salvador Park, a park that in the 1990s was synonymous with a lot of gang violence, a lot of drug abuse. I live 2 houses down from that park, but we were able to have the Summer Night Lights program there, where we saw on average over 150 kids, I would say, 150 people every single Friday there, thanks to neutral ground and not the Alvarado. We were able to really prevent crime. This year, there has only been 2 gang-related shootings, a significant decrease from what we've seen in the past. And our goal is, and my goal as a council member ultimately, is to deter kids from getting to the point of joining gangs, from getting to the point of destroying themselves using drugs. And I'm championing to have more recreational programs, more art programs, more music programs, so that we can be proactive in redirecting children. Because the most unfortunate truth that our city has yet to really acknowledge is that oftentimes when there are people shot and killed, there's a child behind that gun, and there's a child at the end of that bullet. And my job as a policymaker is to make sure that I do everything I can to give these children an opportunity to live. And I feel that in my short time as a council member, I've introduced some very important initiatives that are deterring that. Recently, we had $143 million that we received through the ARPA funds. I introduced $2 million for mental health. I introduced early childhood education across the city. I introduced nearly $8 million to early childhood development at our library so that children 0 to 3 and parents can bring their children there. And even though the child can't read, they can still be engaged through programming. I also introduced a citywide Wi-Fi, essentially a start to that, close to 16 million. We were able to fund that. So that way we can have stronger infrastructure to support students and families that work from home. In addition to that, I introduced a public safety initiative through ARPA called the Gang Reduction Youth Development Department, is what I like to call it. And it's a program where we are going to be funding community organizations that are going to help us deter crime while working simultaneously with our Department of Police. So those are some of the tremendous programs and policies that I've introduced. And it's been nothing short of stellar. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. And some other things I just wanted to share is a lot of senior advocacy. For myself as a council member, I was raised by my grandparents. So seniors hold a very dear place in my heart. My grandmother, Indelisa Prieto, was like a mother. And so one of the things that I'm most proud of is that in the city of Santa Ana, we have a senior Meals on Wheels program that I think is fantastic. I would love to see this program expanded, and I intend to do so. God willing, we may get out of this pandemic within the next year, but if we don't, we have to respond accordingly. And I think that extending a Meals on Wheels program to include local businesses, local restaurants, so that we can feed our seniors, I think is a good way to do that. And that concludes my comments. Yes.
So I know a question, Mr. Hernandez.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned about some situation in the lower neighborhood where you're trying to help or you're helping with residents competing with businesses.
Yes.
Talking about buildings, residents' homes. So
Yes.
how are you going to keep addressing the situation when 89 and 8010 has been just signed by the governor of California, where there's no more single family homes? So in any neighborhood now, can somebody buy you home and make a building?
You bring up a very great
So it's
point.
it's a home with a wing.
Thank you for your question.
I wonder if we add to that, to go along with that, those single family homes are supposed to be no more. Also the rent problem, that just got voted.
Voted for? Yes.
So add that to that. Yeah, and now we want to see now that glass is going to be more gas, because I'm pretty sure that those buildings will go to Beverly Hills.
You're
They're
absolutely
going to
right.
go to not living nearby.
Yes.
San Ana is going to be super crowded, more than what it is. So how, I appreciate your interest in your will, but how can we as a city, the city council, mitigate if it is possible?
Absolutely. You ask an extremely important question that is really dear to me because I'm dealing with this right now. Someone in the room knows what I'm talking about. Mr. Andrade and I work pretty closely. Yes. It's difficult. There's a lot of good actors. When I say actors, I'm meaning businesses, and there's a lot of bad actors that really make the quality of life more difficult for a working class community like Logan. And so, for example, recently I met with Mr. Andrade in the Logan Neighborhood Association. I learned about the ongoing history and how the neighborhood slowly started to change from residential to a mixed zoning. And eventually, I mean, you had a large part of the neighborhood lose a significant amount of housing, and it's changed the dynamic of how people live there. I think that a good strategy for us to implement, and I can speak to one example, I can't name it, but But I think that one of the things that we could do in this particular example is we can do a land swap with a particular business or businesses in the Logan neighborhood, and maybe have it go into an area where it's non-residential, so they can bring these neighborhoods back to the quality of life that's supported to them. And also, as a city council, we can enact local policy so that we can change zoning so that it can be more friendly to families and more supportive of increasing the quality of life. Because I don't think that we should put profit before the needs of our neighbors and children. And it's why I'm proud that on Tuesday, I voted in favor of rent control. Rent control will allow seniors to be able to stay within their houses, their condominiums, their apartments, their mobile homes. And it's extremely important that us as a city do everything that we can to understand the housing crisis that we're in and the potential devastating effects of not protecting our residents and placing a cap on rent. Because you mentioned, when we have people come into our neighborhoods and purchase, properties, who knows how expensive they're going to make rent is, right? So rent control is something that we just voted on Tuesday, and I'm proud to have been a part of that and support it.
How are you going to mitigate the rent control? How are you going to mitigate the maintenance of the building? I mean, let's see, you own the building and you have 24 units to rent. And now you student, you cannot go higher than $2,000 per month. Just give a number. Because it's a control. How can I maintain humanly possible decent quality of life for those renters? If you are putting a cap on my business.
I think what she's asking is, in the past where rent control's gone in, like Santa Monica, Venice, the area has deteriorated because the landlords don't keep the property up because they don't have enough money to do it. So they consider it just a write-off until it's decayed and gone. And that's the history of where it's happened in other cities. So how are you going to mitigate that with the landlords? I remember when we had BERT, business emergency response, not BERT, for community preservation for business. And they would go out and say, okay, we got this landlord to do this and it cost him $150,000. Well, that $150,000 he spent to paint the apartment building and to do landscaping actually went into rent increases so he could pay for it.
Yep.
How are you going to mitigate that?
That's a great question. I would love to get you guys a response, a thorough and efficient response. I'll have to take a look at the ordinance. There was a lot that we discussed on Tuesday, but I will certainly get an answer back to you guys. So if Margarita, if we can get their contact information, I'd love to follow up.
You need to see both sides. Business has to have some profit, other than that wouldn't be a business.
Absolutely.
So if you put in a cap on my business, at some point the business is gonna go to the toilet, I'm sorry my word, and somebody is gonna buy the loan, and it's gonna be worse for the people that was there, couldn't afford anymore, and I think that the remedy is gonna be worse than the disease.
I respect your opinion, but imagine this disease. Imagine thousands of residents being displaced from their home and us having to shuffle them into a homeless shelter. That's also a possibility.
The thing is, this is going around, Santa, and I think you know.
Yes.
What it's doing now with rent control, it's going to destroy Santa Ana more. And it's not helping us at all. Some homeowners, if they have a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, each bedroom is rented to a family. And I think you know it.
Yes.
But nothing is being done. So being that I've been here all my life, you don't live the quality of life that you want to live. And it's destroying the whole neighborhood. But there's no law. They see a policeman, they don't want a policeman. And I think it's destroying rent control, which destroys communities. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I respect your opinion.
I'll send you a packet on studies in psychology, and then there's a recent one that came out on population density. And you get over 1,000 people per square mile, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. What actually happens to that population? We're averaging 16,500 people per square mile. It's documented, so that probably puts around 18,000. that's reaching the high densities of New York.
Yep.
And we know what's going on in New York. So I would be more apt to say, instead of rent control, why don't we do something about keeping it under 20,000 people per square mile, so we can have some green space, so kids can go out and do something and they're not stuck on sidewalks. Once you pass 15,000, you end up with neighborhood decay. I mean, there's not anything you can do about it. It's documented from Detroit, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Cleveland. This is what happens. I mean, there's a good history on it. So personally, I think rent control from the history, that's bad, but at the same time, what's worse than that is increasing the population density above what's considered quality of life levels, and that's coming in at 5,000 or 6,000 people people per square mile, which we well exceeded, and that's why people are screaming for green space and stuff. But there was a question here, and I need to read this to you.
Absolutely.
We've gotten several questions about asking about citywide parking permits, that parking, and obviously we're covering that for 3 or 4 families in a single family home. What can the city do, or what are your thoughts on, and I'm paraphrasing because it's quite long, for citywide parking permit or something to alleviate the parking issues that are coming from this high density that we're bringing to San Diego?
Yes, thank you for the question. This is something that's going to be before us at a council meeting within the next, I would say, within the next month or two. Our Public Works Department is going to be presenting us a study on the citywide, a potential citywide parking initiative. I'm not sure the specific details because it hasn't been brought forth yet, but it's certainly something that I'm intrigued by and something that I'm awaiting. So when that time comes and it's on the agenda, I'm certain that that's going to be an item of interest for everybody.
And this is the latest in Wilshire Square, is that, the last couple of nights, they're starting to paint on the cars now, park, graffiti.
I saw that.
Park where you live.
That's rough.
I don't mean, I believe in
That's unacceptable.
having room to park. Like that, but I don't think people should be parking in the neighborhood either, you can't live there. But that's not the thing to do.
I believe
But that's
it.
the latest, and it's only going to get worse.
It's unacceptable.
Any more questions?
Yeah, with all this, you're saying about, the new law that came through, is that, to me, that feels like what's gonna happen is, there is not gonna be any neighborhood associations. How would you build an association with all these apartments?
Yes.
Associations are usually built for neighborhoods. Neighborhood can consist of apartments, but mostly of single dwellings.
Yeah.
So what's gonna happen? We're all gonna be, is that kind of like what they're trying to throw at us? To get rid of us from going back at the city councils in every city?
I can speak for myself as an elected within the city of Santa Ana. That's not something I support. I support seeing neighborhoods have the representation they deserve, and more importantly, the leadership of those entities should be people that live in that community. People like yourself, Mr. Andrade, that have lived in your neighborhood for a very long time, that understand your neighbors and the complexities that come with the neighborhood. That's what brings value to our neighborhoods. I'm a proud resident of Patricia Pilar, and Ruby's done a fantastic job keeping us engaged. And we look to her for guidance oftentimes. So I fully concur. I think it would cripple neighborhoods and communities to see us move away from that. I know that in the city of Santa Ana, we put a lot of strength and emphasis in our neighborhood associations. And I thank Margarita for the great work that she does in doing that. In Santa, yes, this myth around the country. Margarita has done a fantastic job making sure that neighborhoods have representation, that we're able to work with them through the pandemic. So in Santa Ana, we will always acknowledge neighborhood associations, and God willing, God forbid it gets to that point in the state of California where neighborhood associations lose power. But us here locally, we can act upon that and make sure that neighborhoods keep their power.
If I can add, one of the things I think everyone needs to be maybe more aware of is the flight that's happening in Santa Ana. I have lived in one location for 31 years. Okay, there are 8 streets in the neighborhood. I believe they're just short of a quarter-mile long. So, close to 400 homes. This is the first time in 30 years I've seen at least one house for sale on every street. And they're lasting about a week and a half before they're sold. At least in the South Coast metro area, from South Coast area and across, you're seeing this where there's a flight taking place. And it's taking place with issues that we're talking about for tonight that are people writing about the parking, the quality of life. And this happens with high density, obviously, because the first time in 30 years, we're getting homes that have 3 to 4 families. And that's 8 or 10 cars. And now we're trying to get permanent parking on streets, and then that street gets permanent parking, and all the parking gets pushed to the next street. So as an issue for the upcoming council meeting with permanent parking, it has to be done in a concept where if you're allowing 5 families into a 3 or 4 bedroom home, and each one of them has 2 cars, that's 10 cars, there's going to have to be some type of limitation on what happens or not. Whether we cut the high density population down by limiting parking, I don't know how it can be done. But we're getting a flight of people, and it's not just in South Coast Metro area. I'm sure it's happening across town. And once you have that flight, then you start losing the quality of your town. And that's my personal opinion, but first time in 30 years I've seen anything like this. And I heard about it back in the 80s when there was a middle class flight. And I believe that's what we're having right now is the middle class is saying, you know, let's sell to the Chinese or whoever we're selling to and get the flank out of Dodge.
Yeah. Yeah. I know from experience, in Ward 5, we had a fantastic arts commissioner, Fernando Olivares, and it was just too expensive to stay in California. Unfortunately, he relocated to Texas, but Texas is like becoming its own country now. Yes, a lot of people are relocating to Texas. Unfortunately, we're losing a lot of great Californians. And so as a city, we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we are meeting the housing supply, to build housing that is going to be both affordable and high quality.
And I'm not to interrupt, I apologize, but I'm understanding is you're going for higher density population.
No. So
okay, how do you increase housing and not increase property density?
Well, here's what we're looking at.
Well, no, I mean that's a real question. If you're gonna over where the junkyards are on 2nd Street, there's huge apartment buildings going up over there now, where it used to be junkyards. Well, instead of a junkyard, we're going to have 700-800 units, 700-800 families. That's an increase in population density that's not single family homes. So that'll bring the 16,500 persons per square mile up to what, 18,000? So this is math. I know math is racist now, but math still works. If you put 800.
May I respond? Let me tell you something. You said this is math, right? I grew up in a single family home with 3 families. The only reason I was able to move out was because rent was affordable somewhere else in my city. That's how you're going to fix that situation. It's not going to be making rent unattainable. I'm a Chicano. I lived in a house where we slept in the living room, we slept on a couch, someone slept in a bedroom, and someone slept in this room. And guess what? I became a dad. I was not going to have my daughter live that quality of life. So at the age of 18, I got my first apartment, 333 South Flower Street, apartment 18. I paid $975. By the time my daughter was 5 years old, my rent was $1780. That's why people leave to other cities. So here's how we break that up. The only reason why multiple people are living in one household is because one family can't afford to live there. But if we make rent affordable, you're going to see that drastically change.
To Islam.
No, maybe for you.
Okay, what is the landlord going to do? If you make it where the landlord can't paint the building, can't put water heaters in, can't replace carpets because he has no margin. I mean, obviously, if you're a dentist, you know how a profit and loss works. Okay?
I don't want to do business with that guy. And your verbiage is very offensive.
So he sells everything, a new landlord comes in, and now he can move everybody out because people aren't getting COVID.
Sir, when you're using derogatory terms like that, I'm not going to acknowledge your question. Next question.
So we avoid overpopulation.
I'm not avoiding overpopulation. Sir, you're getting very aggressive.
No, because we're not getting.
You're saying slum. I know when you say slum, you're not talking about people that look like you.
No,
You're talking about people that look like
I
me.
left home at 15 after my father.
I left home at 17.
We lived in a slum. I know what.
I live in a barrio where kids used to get shot and killed at a park 2 houses down from me. My father was a gang member. I think
Keep going.
Has the largest
Sorry,
declared
keep going.
slum in
Sir.
the United States.
Sir, other people would like to ask questions.
Well,
You're not being very professional, sir.
I'm being very professional. I'm looking for
Sir,
you.
you're being very aggressive.
Was
and
it time for a
disrespectful.
commercial?
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, you're doing okay, Jerry?
I'm sad to see a city go away.
I'm not the one.
You know, our city is named after the grandmother of Jesus, Saint Anne. She's got no name after it.
Thank you.
Okay, Ruby, did you have a question? Ruby, go ahead.
I was just wondering, we have a code, we have a microphone. So we have codes for the city planning that we can't build certain buildings and code inspectors and all that we're working with. So I think any kind of problems that would take care of that. And also we made our neighborhood associations a little bit stronger. That will work out with the community, you know, more people working.
Well, I agree with you, but if we're going to be a big population.
Well, George, you keep on reading the negative. There's a lot of positive things in the community
This is,
and with our city councilman, we have been working really hard to help us. I've had more money with him to help with activities, getting people aware of some of the hearings that are going on. So we think about being public, making the neighborhood aware, which is what I'm sorry.
it's okay.
It's a very sensitive topic.
It's a sensitive topic, but I'm trying to look positive, and I've been working with the neighborhood association, and we have to what our rules are, and I feel that we have been getting very much support in the community and being a little bit more positive. There are a lot of problems with them, but I think the city has a lot of regulations with the city planning and people who's been coming on the commission.
Okay, do we have any more questions for our council members here? Okay, that's okay. Any more questions? Any answers? That'll be next. Okay, well, you want to stop right now, or do you want to add some more, or what do you want to do?
We have a question on the Zoom.
Oh, okay, there we go. Thank you, Terry. Okay, so we just wanted to thank the people on Zoom as we're working through the audio. Thank you for your patience. And so we have, this is a question on Mr. Hernandez. Have the Public Works personnel check the work of the contractors? They are breaking the street pavement and not repairing it as originally on 2nd Street. So that's from Gloria Diaz. So that's just a note that we'll take note of that. Thank you, Gloria, for that question. And then another question from Gloria. How come the police is not patrolling neighborhoods between midnight and 5 a.m. due to the citywide increased robberies of cars breaking in and catalytic converters? So I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Yes. That is such a critical comment. And I'm really glad that she mentioned this, because myself and Mayor Sarmiento met with our Chief of Police, David Valentine, today. And we discussed the recent increase in violent crimes. Just over the past month, we had 2 homicides in the beginning of September, a 19-year-old man and someone else that was under the age of 21. And this happened within the span of 1 week in the first week of September. And we met with the chief, and we're going to have a proactive, community-oriented policing approach. I can assure her that our police chief is well aware of the concerns that residents have and is going to respond as needed.
Could I add a little bit to that, please? You know, the police don't know what's going on unless you tell them. If you're having a lot of break-ins in your block or in your neighborhood or anything like that, you need to have your neighborhood association meeting and have the officers or whoever the head of traffic or whatever at your meeting to tell them that we're having these, this was stolen last night, they're graffitiing the trucks right now, they're different vehicles, they're doing this, they're doing that. How about a little help from the police, and you patrol for us? They will, they'll get out and they'll patrol. And if they make themselves noticed, okay, or seen, then the little culprits will think twice about maybe going through that neighborhood, maybe we'll pick another neighborhood. But you work best by getting things done by your neighborhood association and having the police there, just like having code enforcement there at your meetings to tell them what's wrong. But like I say, they don't know what's going on unless you tell them, okay?
Great point. In Ward 5, you have a very proactive council member. I mean, I meet with residents on a daily basis, Monday through Saturday, sometimes Sunday. But I'm always responding to emails, always making sure that my constituents are represented. So if you ever see any crime, or if you ever have any concerns, or if you see any suspicious activity, feel free to email me at jryanhernandez@santa-ana.org. I would love to meet with you and hear your concerns. I would love to be a voice to make sure that you have your concerns addressed by our police department as well. So my email to repeat is jryan, RYAN, Hernandez, HERNANDEZ, @santa-ana.org. Yes.
Is that all one?
All one, correct. Yes, sir.
Yes, getting back to Gloria's question about the construction in Santa Ana. The inspection is subpar. I would invite you to go to Santiago Creek. They're on Main Street. Take a look around that. That is disgusting. They have a porta potty for the community. Now, porta potty only handles 10 people for 40 hours a week. That thing's been out there for 2 months and it's not serviced regularly. I asked 2 days ago for it to be serviced. I went and looked at it today and hadn't even been touched. There's 30 people living in that apartment. Yes. I mean, where are they going to go?
Thank you for your question, sir. I completely agree that that is not something that is ideal for anybody. That is not the way that a park should be utilized, and that's not a quality of life for anyone. I know that Councilmember Lopez, who represents that area, would love to hear these concerns. I would encourage the residents to reach out to her because that's a very large ward. It's not my ward. I wasn't aware of this, but I will certainly bring these concerns to our Public Works Director and our Parks and Recreation Director, Lisa Rudloff, so that we can have this addressed within tomorrow. So I'll go ahead and take care of that tonight on behalf of Councilmember Lopez. I'll go ahead and send an email. Margarita, if you can just kindly give me a reminder. Thank you, sir. We'll make sure to address that. I concur with you, but there should be constant enforcement there.
About Dr. Mulray, don't we? Well,
Thank you.
Say thank you very much, Councilmember.
Thank you.
Is it coming?
It's an honor to be here.
Nice to meet you too. All right, bye-bye. Give a hand here. Please. Yes, I wanted to get you, remember I said next general meeting here is October the 28th, and we will have the Senate and the PD Chief Valentin and introducing Rodriguez. Code enforcement will have, and our council member should be Jesse Lopez. Okay, so thank you, all of you, for coming tonight. And if you can, those of you that are still listening on the virtual, put your mask on and come on down. Okay, we have all these chairs fixed here tonight nicely, but just like 3 or 4 feet apart, so nobody has a problem with anything. So we want to get you back down here with us. Okay. All right. Good night, everybody.
I know. I have